It's Oscars season. There are 9 movies nominated for Academy Awards this year, and I'll be reviewing all of them. I'll rank them, pick my personal winner, but also I'll predict which one the Academy will choose as its winner. Now, I've already reviewed Joker and Jojo Rabbit. You can go back in the feed and listen to my thoughts on those. However, between now and February 9th, the night of the Oscars, you could expect to hear reviews on the remaining 7 finalists, which includes the contenders from Netflix. Today's movie is Ford vs. Ferrari, which tells the story of how the American car company Ford went up against its seemingly unbeatable rival Ferrari in the 24 Hours of Le Mans Grand Prix back in 1966. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and this is Leaving the Theater. All right, this is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing Ford vs. Ferrari, directed by James Mangold, writers Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, and Jason Keller. Now, I have the full advantage of being able to see this movie after knowing that it has been nominated for a Best Picture. So, that being said, I've walked in probably a little more critical than most people walking in, because I need to know why this movie beat some other movies that didn't quite make it. How you doing, sir? Some other movies that didn't quite make it. So that being said, I'm hoping that I have an objective review in my mind. I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. There was nothing particularly stand out-ish to me about it. I thought it flowed well. It's hard for me to pick one thing and be like, this one thing was it. I think slightly above all else was Christian Bale's performance. I found myself really enjoying his performance in the movie. But I didn't particularly find anything about it better than most other movies I've seen this year. There's conflict in the movie that I feel like at times is a little bit overblown and a little bit contrived. The villain is, again, contrived. When they come up with a villain, they're not coming up with somebody who, like, the whole premise of the movie is that they're trying to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans race. And they're trying to beat Ferrari in order to do that, which you get that entire premise in the preview. And this is a biopic, so it is based on a true story. But with all of that being said, watching it, you have to have some sort of conflict. So in order for them to make conflict, they make conflict between the people who are trying to just build the thing, win the race, and the suits, the people, the executives at Ford. And that conflict in the movie, it works in terms of a movie conflict, but in reality, watching it, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. Now, I work in IT, and I have those sorts of conflicts all the time, but in order to make them more dramatic, they do a couple of things in the film in order to make it a little more dramatic, put a little bit more on the line, and I just don't know that this film needed that. This film needed that, or that it did it that well, if that makes any sense. That being said, for it to be a Best Picture nominee, I don't see it. I think this was a good movie. I think it was a solid movie. I give it 3 of 5 stars. But when we're talking Best Picture nominees, we got to do better than 3 stars. I feel like watching this, it was fine. But in terms of stand out of the year, there's movies that did not make it that I think do a much better job of storytelling, writing, direction, all of those better than this. I feel like this was just a good movie, and it was just good enough. The idea of it being the best of 2019, I think, is a bit of a stretch for me. Don't have much to say about it because I don't feel like there's nothing really offensive to say about this movie. Not a bunch of offensive things happened. Now, I guess the bigger commentary I could make is the fact that I feel like this movie is nostalgic for the days of old, when men could just be men. There's a lot of men in this movie. There's one woman, she's and she is a wife of one of the drivers, so she's really just support in this film. Everybody else in the movie is a man, which that inherently doesn't bother me. A movie with a bunch of men doesn't bother me, but this movie with these men, there was a couple times watching this where I was just like, did this need to be made? And then on top of that, knowing that it's this type of movie with all of these men and all of these particularly white men, and it's about racing cars, and it's set in the past. I believe it's set in the late 60s. So we're a little bit beyond or right in the middle of, I think it's 67. It's either 66 or 67. So we're like right alongside of civil rights, and there's made no mention of civil rights or anything else that could be going on, So I think this movie takes place in a vacuum, and it's one of those movies that doesn't have a conversation about race at all, which I think is convenient for these particular white men. So I think watching it as a black man, I think about that, and I think even a little bit of lip service would have been nice for them to just say, ever since the race riots, or I don't know, it just seems like some reference would have made, but they don't have to make those references. And I think what bothers me about this being a Best Picture nominee is that it feels like Oscar is yet again picking a movie that longs for an America that was, and this isn't the first time that things like this happen, or longing for the American dream, if you will, which is a muscle car. If you look at something like The Big Short, which was a good movie, but it's still a movie about Wall Street, if you think about it. Even though it's the failings of Wall Street, it's about these down on your luck people that made a killing by predicting that it was wrong. That movie got nominated for a Best Picture. There's another one, The Wolf of Wall Street, also nominated for a Best Picture, where once again we're watching this guy beat the system, you know what I mean? And even though eventually he does end up losing, but again, they pick these movies that have these just themes of Americana, of like the scrappy ragtag person, and I think we could tell those stories in a way that isn't just fast cars, Wall Street, make money. I think there's a way we could do a better job of that. I'm off on a tangent now. I gave it 3 of 5 stars. Not a bad movie. Great to see. Take your kids or don't. Take your wife or don't. Take all your dude friends or don't. Take your black friends, white friends. Take whoever. It's a very inoffensive, nice movie. It's good. I did not think it was great. But with that being said, Leaving the Theater is a production of ohitsBigRon Studios. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. To find out more about this show and other ohitsBigRon Studios shows, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ohitsBigRon. That's at ohitsBigRon. If you like this show, check out our sister podcast, Time Well Spent. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. See you at the movies.